Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to our online teaching academy, Ekalaiva. CBSE Class 12 Economics. Unit 10 Comparative Development Experiences of India and its Neighbors. Here, we are going to discuss about the comparative development of the three countries, India, China, and Pakistan. This chapter covers the regional and economic groupings, India, Pakistan, and China, their similarities, the similar developmental strategies adopted by India and Pakistan, landmarks in the development of India, Pakistan, and China. John F. Kennedy has given an interesting quote: "Geography has made us neighbors, history has made us friends, economics has made us partners, and necessity has made us allies. Those whom God has so joined together, let no man put asunder." It makes us understand how and why we need to compare India with its neighboring countries, China and Pakistan, on the basis of development. Various nations go to the extent of understanding the developmental processes pursued by their neighboring nations in order to know their own strengths and weaknesses compared to their neighbors. Many nations are trying to adopt various means to strengthen their economies. They form regional and global economic groupings such as the SAARC, the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. This includes 8 countries of South Asia. The next is the European Union. This consists of 25 independent states based on the European communities. ASEAN is the association of South East Asian nations. It is a regional intergovernmental organization comprising 10 countries in Southeast Asia. And G8 and G20 are grouping of 8 nations and grouping of 20 nations. These groupings focus on the financial stability of the economy. And the next regional and global economic grouping is the Brics. It is a grouping which has been formed by 5 countries. B stands for Brazil, R Russia, I India, C China, and S South Africa. Let us now know the similarities in the strategies followed by the 3 countries, India, China, and Pakistan. Development in all the 3 countries started at the same time. Till 1980s, all the 3 countries had similar growth rate and per capita income. India and Pakistan got independence in 1947, whereas Republic in China was established in 1949. 5-year plans were introduced in all the 3 countries almost during the same period. India announced its first 5 year plan for the period 1951 to 1956. Pakistan announced its first 5 year plan in 1956 and China in the year 1953. India has completed its 12th 5 year plan from 2012 to 2017. Since 2013, Pakistan is working on the 11th 5 year development plan during 2013 to 2018, whereas China is working on its 13th 5 year plan between 2016 and 2020. Similar developmental strategies adopted by India and Pakistan. India and Pakistan started planning in a similar way. Developmental programs adopted by both the countries was based on economic planning. For growth and development, public sector was selected as the medium of choice. Both India and Pakistan created many public sector enterprises. They raised public expenditure on social development. A mixed economic structure was followed by both countries, which involved public and private sector participation. Economic reforms were introduced at the same time to strengthen their respective economies. India introduced its reforms in 1991 and Pakistan introduced its reforms in 1988. Landmarks in the development policies followed in India. In 1951, India launched its first 5 year plan and adopted the mixed economy approach. In 1956, the IPR Industrial Policy Resolution of 1956 was assigned with a prominent role to public sector and secondary role to private sector. In 1961, the new agricultural strategy, the Green Revolution, was introduced. This raised the agricultural production in India and it helped in removing shortages in food grains. In 1991, India introduced its economic reform, New Economic Policy, and this was due to the foreign exchange crisis. Liberalization, privatization, and globalization were the main features. The policy still continues. In 2017, there was a shift from medium term 5 year planning to perspective planning with a 15 years vision. Planning Commission was replaced by Niti Aayog, a much broad-based body. The expansion of the acronym NITI is National Institution for Transforming India. Let us now know the landmarks in development policies followed in China. The Communist China, or the People's Republic of China, was established in 1949. They adopted socialist system with all production activities under government control. All the enterprises owned by individuals were brought under the government control. All economic decisions were taken by the government. This model of economic growth adopted by China is known as statism, which means the state has a major role in directing the economy. In other words, ownership of all resources is vested with the state. In 1958, the Great Leap Forward campaign was launched. It aimed at the industrialization of the country on a large scale. And in 1966 to 76, the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution was launched. Students and professionals were sent to work and learn from countryside. In 1978, there were economic reforms in China. Let us see the developmental status of China in detail. The Great Leap Forward (GLF) was initiated in 1958. It aimed at industrializing the country on a massive scale. People were encouraged to set up industries in their backyards. It is a campaign to create awareness among the people that they can play a significant role in the process of GDP. This program was initiated to transform China from an agrarian economy to a modern economy. It was introduced by Chairman Mao Zedong, also known as Mao Zedong. In rural areas, communes were started. Communes means collective cultivation of land. The Chinese organized collective cultivation of land. In 1958, there were 26,000 communes. The Great Leap Forward program faced many problems. A severe drought occurred in China and 30 million people died. The conflict with Russia also affected the industrialization process in China. Next is the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution. In 1965, Mao Zedong introduced the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution. This revolution was a movement in the People's Republic of China from 1966 to 1976. This revolution sent students and professionals to work and learn from the countryside. It resulted in many hardships for the people of China. The reforms introduced in China in 1978 resulted in fast economic growth. It was introduced in phases, the initial phase and the later phase. Reforms were initiated in agricultural sector, foreign trade, and investment sectors in the initial phase. In agricultural sector, the commune lands were divided into small plots and allocated to individuals. They were allowed to retain all income after payment of taxes. In the later phase, reforms were in the industrial sector. Private firms and local collectives were allowed to set up manufacturing units. There was competition between the private sector and the SOE, that is, state owned enterprises. As a part of China's economic reform, dual pricing system was introduced. Farmers and industrial units were required to buy and sell fixed quantities of inputs and outputs on the prices fixed by the government and the rest at the market prices. Two different prices were fixed for a product. Special economic zones were set up to attract foreign investors in China. These zones offered basic amenities to the investors. Landmarks in development policies followed in Pakistan. In 1956, Pakistan started the economic planning under mixed economic system. There was coexistence of both public sector and private sector. Pakistan adopted various regulated policy framework for import substitution and industrialization in 1960s. Import taxes were levied at higher rates to protect the domestic consumer goods industries. Tariff protection was provided for the manufacture of these goods, and there were changes in agricultural sector too. In agricultural sector, machines were used after the introduction of Green Revolution. This increased the production of food grains. In 1970s, capital goods industries were nationalized. In the late 1970s and 1980s, Pakistan shifted its policies to privatization. The process of denationalization started. Pakistan received financial support from Western nations. The government also offered incentives to the private sector enterprises. And in 1988, economic reforms were initiated in Pakistan. To receive our online lessons, please press the subscribe button and you will receive the latest updates. Thank you.